Good afternoon. Thanks for coming. We're going to start our show central conversation on LEED V5. I'm joined by Melissa Baker from the U.S. Green Building Council. Thank you for joining us today, Melissa. Thank you. So, Melissa, can you start by just giving us a little bit of information about kind of an overview of the LEED program and the USGBC, and then tell us what's new in LEED V5?
Yeah, great. Thank you. And LEED stands for Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design. It is a voluntary program created by the U.S. Green Building Council, and we are at 25 years of LEED on Sunday. So we've been around for a while. We are at our version 5, as Dan noted, and that is slated to come out this spring. So it is a voluntary scorecard covering all areas of focus for buildings, and we also have cities and communities work as well, and interiors. So pretty much any project is eligible to look at LEED for criteria around resource efficiency, looking at energy and water savings, for example, materials and resources, waste management, circularity, looking at the site around the building and how that's managed, as well as transportation, how you get to and from the site, what's available to staff, and of course, our indoor environmental quality. So how do we manage for people, and what do people need within the space to be healthy, and to be able to deal with certain episodic events, right, like wildfires, et cetera. So trying to cover the full gamut of buildings, both on new construction as well as operations and management, and really offering lots of great solutions and ideas. Those build into a scorecard, and through that scorecard, projects can get recognized with a certification. We have different levels going from certified all the way to platinum at the highest level. So there's lots of opportunity to build around the project goals, the budget, and what areas of focus the team wants to focus on to get to that certification. And then there's some prerequisites, so minimum compliance required to achieve that as well.
Can you maybe explain what some of the facility management related credits would be that
Absolutely.
our audience would be interested in achieving?
So we created a new construction rating system. It was the first one that we did, and then realized very quickly that that was not going to apply to existing buildings, operations, and maintenance. So since about 2008, there's been a existing buildings focused rating system, and it is focused on both performance through data, so saving those resources, energy and water, tracking your waste, and looking at how much waste you're avoiding and diverting. So that's a key area of focus, I know, for many facility managers. Looking at staff transportation, and then measuring indoor environmental quality. So those are the performance pieces. And then there's a lot of key strategies, again, focused on, I think a lot of what's under control of the facility managers in terms of looking at how you're cleaning the building, how you're monitoring the cleaning, how you're taking care of the occupant. So what do those cleaning staff or other facility staff need to be safe and healthy within the building? What do the occupants need? There's actually an occupant survey to understand occupant satisfaction, and really looking at the building operations, how successfully that's going, and then finding strategies to improve if needed. So finding ways to integrated pest management, for example, or other ways to look at things like bird strikes, right? So how do you protect wildlife in and around the building? So we're really looking at creating strategies around policies and plans that lay out the expectations for the building, and then measuring the outcome of those policies through performance. So I would say it's very central to the role of facility manager. There's a lot of opportunity to have positive impact within the building. I will also offer, not to put our staff on the spot, but we have our great, wonderful staff here in the back. We have a booth right here, and our facility manager is here, and she was telling me some stories. So we'd love to talk more about Melanie. We'd love to talk more about the success stories we've seen. Once you start looking for where the building may have some issues, may need improvement, there's a lot of opportunity in getting started, whether it's improving the lighting and the lighting controls to save some energy, or whether it's looking at that routine maintenance schedule and understanding, are you looking at your ventilation? Is enough air coming into the building, right? Sometimes we find that there's been an error and some of the dampers are closed, so you're not getting enough air, but you don't really know unless you've gone and measured. So a lot of it is that measured management and really understanding how the building's operating and looking to improve.
So, what is new in LEED V5 that facility managers should be looking for?
I will say a big piece that I know is on everyone's mind is resilience. So we looked at, in operations, what needs to be understood around being resilient to different events that may happen. So emergency preparedness, understanding who's in the building, what they need to do in the event of an emergency. Also looking at how you manage your air quality, again, those episodic. So like if there's a wildfire or if there's an outbreak, of an illness, how can you set the building up to be managed in those events that unfortunately have become more frequent, as we all know, and we need to be ready and prepared for. The other focus that we added was more, and it was there, but continuing to really focus on the people in the building and making sure that we looked at worker safety and training, understanding who's using the building and how they're cared for, also understanding who's in and around the community and what their needs might be. So we added some of that human impact focus and making sure that we're really assessing that before we dive into strategies. We continued the data-driven performance measurement, so understanding how you're using energy, water, what waste you're generating, and looking for strategies to improve if the performance is not where it needs to be. So that's definitely in there. We also have a strong ongoing track for the last 20 years around green cleaning and understanding how you can work with your cleaning vendors for different types of cleaning, as well as different, using different materials in your cleaning. So that continues throughout, and really looking at also the operations policies, for how you're running the building.
If someone had already earned one of the LEED certifications in the prior years, do they need to recertify under LEED V5?
So we have an expiration date on the operations certification because we know things change, right? Change in the building, the use of the building may change. There may be renovations or other upgrades to the building. So it is set on a 3-year time frame. And so there is an expectation of that ongoing tracking and maintenance of performance, but also the potential to upgrade and integrate. I think we're seeing a lot of change pretty rapidly around the way technology has evolved, the use of sensors within the building to understand the building performance, what AI may do for us in terms of understanding how we can upgrade over time. There's been a strong interest that I've seen in terms of understanding, especially around efficiency, how that ongoing monitoring can become more and more automated, and looking at how those upgrades will change performance. So strongly encouraging that ongoing monitoring, ongoing certification to really understand and make sure that the building's high performance is maintained.
Sustainability is such an important piece for facilities, and a lot are going to achieve, carbon neutrality or net zero energy. Does LEED help them on that path to net zero?
So one of the big pieces we put into this version 5 rating system is actually planning towards those goals. So strategic decarbonization planning, if there is a goal moving towards things like net zero, how do you lay those goals out knowing that it may take time and it may have to be aligned with capital improvements, equipment upgrades, the equipment life cycle. So understanding that over time you may reach those goals. In the near term, it may or may not be possible depending on the age and age of the equipment. So really laying out a plan, making that plan, and then planning to execute over time. So I certainly want to reward those that are already there. I mean, that's a big piece of what we're doing. But for those that aren't at that level of, let's say, a net zero performance, making the plans and helping to get there. And that's definitely a big focus for our organization in terms of getting guidance and education out there around strategic decarbonization.
What about from a cost savings factor? Obviously, people are always, sustainability isn't always cheap, but then they're looking for their ROI. How can achieving LEED help with that?
I would say there's a few pieces. One, you may uncover through the investigation part of planning to get a certification savings that you didn't know existed. And that goes back to some of the stories we hear about how once you start looking, you find issues within the building that can be fairly easily remedied and potentially save or improve efficiency, as well as then that longer term planning and understanding how that can impact total cost and savings. So while there might be some upfront costs, there's often opportunity that's found in doing that investigation and finding those savings.
Do you have any questions from our audience that you would have about LEED or sustainability?
Okay.
Is anyone pursuing a LEED certification at this time? Right. Could you use the mic? We are recording this. Thank you.
Yeah, so we built a plant in Sikeston, Missouri that actually achieved LEED Platinum, and our corporate structures basically made that the expectation going forward with any new construction and we have a couple going on right now.
And have you looked at the existing building certification, then following on to the new construction?
That I am not sure. I'm not 100% if they are following that.
Got it. Well, that's where I'd love to talk more, because that's what I'm here to talk about today is, how you track that ongoing monitoring post. Like, new construction is absolutely important, but it's very point in time. And then we really need to pick up and continue to monitor the building, and I'm sure all the work that you're doing in the building to keep it running and recognize and reward that.
Where would you recommend someone start with the LEED program? You look at the certification, there's a lot of different categories, a lot of different points available. It can be an undertaking. Where would you suggest someone start with the program?
Absolutely. Well, one, come visit us at the booth because we'd love to answer that question. But we do also have a great education program that's available, and there's free courses and a subscription. If an organization is a member company, the education is often packaged within that, so you can start to understand some of the details and where to get started. And then I would just say, the rating system is free, and we've intentionally made that. You can download it off our website, trying to just give everyone those strategies and start those conversations. So I think it really is taking a look at the scorecard, the rating system, understanding what's resonant with the goals of whether it's the building or the owners, and just starting to sort of pick out things that seem achievable and kind of getting the ball rolling. And then again, often the low-hanging fruit, especially around energy efficiency, is there and can be found if that's a good way to get started with some cost savings.
Yeah, so I was going to ask next if you had any examples of kind of that low-hanging fruit that a facility manager should look at.
Definitely, in terms of, and I don't say this because I don't think there are plenty of facility managers obviously already doing it, but just want to highlight it. Having that sequence of operations and really understanding how the building should be running, but then also monitoring to make sure that's actually happening. So how, can you set up to get the data to understand if your garage fans are running 24 hours a day when they should only be running, when there's cars in the garage, right? Or in our office, for example, we are not there on Friday. So we want to have a setback that, on Friday, most things are off because people just aren't there. So it's really, I think, starting to understand and see if we can get the data on how things are actually happening in the building. And there are a lot more opportunities now, whether it's leak detection, air quality monitoring, monitoring energy use in individual modules for those different pieces of equipment. And that's where, again, technology can really help us get that data. So starting there definitely is one key piece of it. I'd say the other one is, again, some fairly straightforward efficiency around having things turn off when they're not in use, upgrading the lighting. Like, there's some pretty good proven steps that can be done that have quick payback.
And it sounds like LEED has always been kind of how green is the building, for the planet. And it sounds now with LEED V5, we're incorporating more of how green is it for the people who actually have to live and work there. Is that by design? And I know you guys recently partnered with the Well Institute as well. Kind of what brought about that change for looking at the occupants?
Yeah, and I would say maybe a slight counterpoint. I think we've always had a focus on occupants, but we really wanted to make sure that focus included all potential occupants. And so looking at the service people that are coming into the building, with the visitors, alongside the ongoing occupants, and making sure that everyone's needs were met and understood, and then taken into account in decisions that were being made in the building. And then I'll also note, I mean, indoor air quality has become a key area of focus. The pandemic certainly brought that to light, but the wildfires happening in California, for example. And so I think there's just an awareness around how people interact with the building and what they need that's driving a lot of that ongoing monitoring and interest from tenants in really understanding their space and understanding how that space is maintained. I would also say for things like green cleaning, similarly, the pandemic brought a lot of awareness and understanding around cleaning, and so that's certainly been an ongoing area of focus. I know there's a number of organizations here talking about cleaning today, and making sure that that is really understood and monitored as well.
And I do like the new emphasis in LEED V5 on resilience and starting to tie resilient efforts with sustainability. There's a lot of similarities there, and that's not usually a connection someone makes. So I think that's really great that the program is starting to connect those two a little further.
Yeah, thank you. I think there's an awareness that we're looking to build, and I've certainly seen that happening in the last several years of everybody starting to understand that they need to be aware of what might happen and do our best to understand and respond to it. So we wanted to make sure that that was a key piece of what we were asking for in the certification and building that awareness, and then similarly education and training on what to do in response.
And we used to always see, resilience, that's for data centers and hospitals, and that's it. But no, it is for all facility types. So I'm glad to see that USGBC is starting to get that message out.
Yeah, thank you. And I will agree. I think there's so much you can do, whether it's knowing a plan to bring your business back online more quickly because something has happened. Again, emergency preparedness for the people in the building. There's quite a range, to your point, of resilience. It's not all that, obviously a hospital has to be able to operate in any crisis, but there's also quite a lot that can be done just in an office building or otherwise to focus on resilience.
Is there any final thoughts you'd like to give us on LEED V5 and kind of what else might be coming down the pike from USGBC?
Yeah, well, we are very excited. LEED V5 should be coming out in the next couple of months. We're aiming for a spring launch, so pretty soon we'll have more information on the rating system and its availability. We are also working on updating our cities and communities rating systems, and so there's definitely opportunity in connecting, your city or community to the buildings as well, and bringing these ideas out to the larger world. And then, like I said, got lots of great education and training and opportunities. There's a credential that we carry as well around LEED, and so lots of ways to get involved and get started long before you even look at a certification. So.
And speaking of education, Melissa will be speaking this afternoon once the expo hall closes. I believe your session is at 1:40 right after the hall closes. Mm-hmm. So if you want more information about LEED or have questions for Melissa, please come to her session this afternoon. Thank you for joining me today.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks, everybody.